Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to NerdTube. And it's time to talk about Dark Side, season 6, episode 8. Sorry, Dark Side of the Ring, that is. Season 6, episode 8. The
Episode
Scream
9.
Queen. Oh, episode 9, even. The Scream Queen, Daphne. I'm here with Cheeto today, as unfortunately Jose was unable to make it, being Memorial Weekend. But this is without doubt. Sorry.
No. I mean, Monday. Yeah, I guess Monday is Memorial Day, but it's
I
okay.
think he's leading up to Memorial Week and stuff like that from what I heard
Okay.
from him. But
Gotcha.
regardless, this is, in my opinion, one of the most tragic episodes of Dark Side of the Ring because we do get some fascinating stories, macabre stories. But this was one of the most saddest ones in recent years. But I still found it a fascinating watch. How about yourself, Cheetah?
Yeah, this one was a rough watch for me, just because I hold like mental health like very near and dear to me, just because my struggles and stuff like that. So, I this is kind of a episode that really hits home, and that's why it's I feel like this episode is very important because it kind of shows the spiral and that where how no matter how popular, no matter how many people can be there in time. I mean, because Daphne had tons of fans, like she had millions of fans, at some points in her career. She was on WCW, she was on TNA, like so it just goes to show you that just how like your mental health can skew everything you see about yourself. So it doesn't matter, how you look, where, so yeah. So that this episode is very important to me, not because I was a huge fan of Daphne. I mean, I like Daphne, but I mean, it's something that I always like champion for is for awareness for mental health.
Yeah, I mean the episode in itself was so deep. Is that before the episode even began, um, we started with like one of those sort of warnings saying that this is an episode about suicide and suicide ideation, which basically means like the fascination of suicide and wanting to understand it better and so on. And I personally didn't necessarily think the episode went too much into suicide itself, other than when it happened. But nevertheless, we'll start going by talking about Daphne things. So Daphne was a larger than life character. She'll do whatever it takes to get her character over. Now I'm gonna, but whilst I'm talking about this episode, Cheetah, I'll be referring her as Daphne and as Shannon, because her name was Shannon Sproul, aka Daphne. She arrived in wrestling in 1999. Loved by her fans and her peers, she was seen as positivity, but the reality was she was suffering from bipolar disorder. And it's weird in a way regarding bipolar disorder because I've 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 come across people who allegedly apparently have it, and it's I gotta be very careful what I say sometimes. I don't want to come across somebody who is not necessarily understanding of the situation. But some of the people I've come across, like, and these are quite renowned people on YouTube. These are YouTubers. They they come across as assholes, as far as I'm concerned. But I've been told that I have to give these people a pass, or they get given a pass because they have bipolar disorder. And it's weird in a way because then if I say anything, then I'm an asshole. But I don't have bipolar disorder. But they're allowed to be an asshole because they have bipolar disorder. If you know
I
what I
don't
mean.
I don't think it excuses it. I mean, I'm going to be the first one to say like that bipolar disorder, yeah, it is a very dynamic change. You have really high highs and really low lows, but that doesn't give you credence just to be an asshole. You know, in my opinion, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it. Like that doesn't give you credit. You know, you have to have enough insight into your condition, because bipolar does not mean that you are, you know, you are developmentally delayed. Like you're bipolar and developmentally delayed, that's one thing. But like if you are not developmentally delayed and you are bipolar, you have enough insight into your condition to know this is how you feel, and you shouldn't just act like an asshole without you know, without fear of recourse. You're an asshole, and you know, yeah, you're an asshole. Maybe bipolar, that doesn't give you a pass. I'm sorry. Like,
I agree. Actually, I 100% agree. You know, but anyway, so Shannon, when she came into WCW, which is just how she began her career, she was killing it. And unfortunately for her, this was at a period within the industry when she joined it that they were soon bought out by the WWE, and that Daphne herself kind of went into depression, and she went into a spiral like without even sleeping and stuff like that. Now, if you are suffering from mental conditions and then you're not sleeping as well, you're not helping yourself. That's for sure. But she did end up signing for the WWE. But she was in their developmental, and her bipolar, unfortunately, was kicking her back then. And we have to understand as well that even though this was not too long ago, you know, even things like concussions and sort of mental health issues, they were never necessarily taken. Still, even back then, you know, in the early 2000s, they weren't taken that seriously. You know, it really was the Benoit incident. You know, that really turned everything on its head. And unfortunately, this was before that regarding Daphne. I mean, obviously she survived, and she was still around after that. But most of the headaches she went through was kind of before that.
yeah, I mean, the damage had already been done at that point with her, because
Yeah,
I think when did the TNA incident happen? I want to say it was what, 2009. It was before, wasn't it before Hogan? I think.
I can't remember. I'll be
Okay.
honest with you. I have got it here
Okay.
though in my notes.
Okay. Well, we'll get
So
to it eventually then.
Amanda Rodriguez was a friend of Daphne. She also suffered from bipolar disorder and could understand Daphne's plight. There are drugs you can take when you're tackling bipolar, when you're trying to tackle your bipolar mindset, but the side effects, which we heard from her family, were kind of horrible. You know, you end up having headaches and you start throwing up and stuff like that. Amanda said if you don't take care of your bipolar, it can become very aggressive and the risk of suicide comes in. I can totally understand. Shannon's brother saw her going through the stages and tried taking her to hospital on one particular occasion, and Shannon actually tried to jump out the car. Shannon said in a shoot interview in 2013, she saw people around her wanting to help her, but at the same time, she also saw those same people being kind of powerless and not knowing what to do.
Well, I mean,
Sorry, go on.
that's kind of one of the cruxes of it, is that, you know, a lot of people don't know what to do with that. I mean, because it seems like a futile attempt to do anything, but just sometimes being there, even just present, not even saying anything, just being present is enough comfort for some people.
Yeah. So Daphne wanted to get back in the ring, and by 2003, she was in the Indies, and she made more friends there. We were introduced now to a person called Taylor Wilde, who I vaguely remember.
I kind of
And
remember her too.
yeah, and Daphne wrestled in the women's only company called Shimmer. You know, what was that series Glow? Was that based on that industry Shimmer? I'm not sure,
I have no
but
idea. I mean, I know of Shimmer, which was, as you know, which is kind of, and they do address this in the episode where it was kind of trailblazing in women's wrestling, when women's wrestling was kind of still bra and panty matches and all. You know, they were still valets. They weren't really taken seriously. And, you know,
it,
Shimmer and kind of highlighted, hey, look, these female competitors can actually, you know, go in the ring. And Daphne also showed that. I mean, Daphne was, you know, we kind of skimmed over it. I'm sure you probably would have brought it up again, but like Daphne in WCW she won the cruiserweight title. She was in there with like she was kind of like China in the fact that she was in there with competitors and was actually competing. And was she the best worker? No, but she was actually like keeping up, and she was actually doing things back then that besides China really hadn't been done all that much. Like actually having good competitive matches with male superstars. I'm not saying women couldn't even back then. I'm just saying like it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a big intergender matches were not a commonality. And they're not even today, but still, there are very few competitors I feel like that can pull it off without making it look, I don't want to say cheesy, but like staged. You know what I mean?
I get you. Without maybe making the men look too emasculated.
Yeah.
I guess.
I mean,
So
let's be real. The only thing that really China brought to the table in those intergender matches was that she was just a beast of a woman. Like I mean, she just overpowered people. I mean, Chris Jericho, like even said, like she just overpowers you. Like she's a big lady. And
oh yeah, for sure.
which there's no problem with that. It's just that but she was more of kind of like China was more of like your Hulk Hogan, your Great Khali. Like and I know that's saying that's really diminishing her.
I would put her as more like a Batista.
Okay, you know what? Batista's a much better example. Yes, you're right. Yeah, like she's not. She was just more of like, that smack dab brute in the ring, whereas Daphne was more. She won the cruiserweight title. Like she had to work. Like not work. You know what I mean? But like she had to
Daphne
like
was more like a Jeff Hardy.
yeah,
Yeah,
like the more of the daredevil and everything like that, and she had
yeah.
spots. Whereas China had some spots, but it was more, like maybe a crossbody off the top, where you got Daphne doing like moonsaults and stuff. So
Yeah.
anyway, continue. Sorry.
Yeah. So she was part of that sisterhood called Shimmer. But by the way, I have to quickly mention that this is it's almost embarrassing for me, but this was the first time I've heard of Shimmer, which is crazy. Considering we've done so many episodes of Dark Side, and I never heard of them before prior to this episode, and I never heard of them in any other capacity until today, which was very unusual.
Because sorry to jump in again, but like with Shimmer, it's like it seems like, and I don't know for a fact, but it seems like it was like a well-ran, legit company. Like their problem is that they were trying to sell female wrestling like exclusively, and just back then it just wasn't a thing. It just didn't work for people. I don't know why. I enjoy good, like I remember back on SmackDown in the 2010s and the late 2000s where you had your Beth Phoenixes, your Natalia Neidharts, your Mickey Jameses when they were in their prime, and there were Gail Kim even like in TNA and the Beautiful People and ODB. Like you had really good female competitive wrestling, but that was until then that really wasn't a thing until and so Shimmer kind of suffered from from that not being in the limelight and not people not taking it seriously, basically.
Yeah, I agree. So, Caleb Colney is a pro wrestler who dated Daphne for 4 years. He talked about her bipolar, and each day he saw different sides to her. Caleb tried to be the best boyfriend he could be, but he admitted that he was in his early 20s back then, and he was also pretty naive. I think there was a bit of an age difference as well between him and Daphne. He definitely looked a lot young. He looked like a fucking kid.
I was about to say, at this point, Daphne would have been what, almost 30, maybe in her 30s, and then because she was 47 when she passed, so I think she would have been in her like early 30s when he was in his early 20s. Like he was 20.
She died in 2021, so yeah, she would have. So when was she dating him? In 2003-ish,
Something, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like he was like 20. She would have been like in her early 30s, maybe late 20s. Yeah. I'd have to do the math, and I don't math well.
Okay. Regardless, even though she suffered from bipolarism, her disorder never affected her during her in-ring performances, and it got her to an opportunity where she finally got to able to work within TV again with TNA. And as you mentioned, we saw within TNA how they took women's wrestling very seriously. They didn't mess about. You had all these recognizable wrestlers. Yes, they did the fact, the sort of, not necessarily the bra and panty sort of stuff, but they played on it with the beautiful people, so to speak. With the gorgeous ladies, but at the same time, they had a variety of different women wrestlers, and they were all in tremendous shape, and they all offered something different within the industry. It's such a shame with TNA. I don't want to go down that road again, but god damn it, Um, she came in as a parody of Sarah Palin.
I did
And she
not
called it.
realize that was her. I remember her. I remember
You
that
remember this?
character. I do. I remember this. And when that came up, I said, "Holy shit, that was Daphne!" Like, I totally did not know she was playing that Sarah Palin ripoff.
This is good as well because she kind of showed some versatility as well, because there's things like her scream gimmick and being a goth and all of that was pretty much a play on who she truly is.
Well, I mean, she was the proto Rhea Ripley. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I guess but I was thinking maybe a little bit more of a leader as well.
yeah,
You know,
like a mixture of the
regarding
two.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, she came in as a Sarah Palin sort of character, the governor or the governess, but I think they called her the governor.
No, I think I thought they
Yeah,
called her the governess. I think you're right. Maybe maybe I'm wrong, but
and yeah, she kind of showed some range as a performer, but then again, she has an acting background. We saw that she did some TV movies like Santa Claus and stuff like that back in the day, so she's got some ability to perform. And then the kayfabe story of all of this was that Dr. Stevie Richards got Governor Shannon to become Screen Queen Daphne again. And she was doing so well being Daphne again in her performances within TNA. The likes of people like Mick Foley, took a shine to her and wanted to work with her as well. Which was great because Mick Foley, even then, he was already a renowned superstar.
yeah, I've actually been watching a lot of Stevie Richards' YouTube show. It's actually really good.
Okay.
I think he takes himself a little too seriously as like this, but like he's Stevie Richards was never like a like big name behind the scenes, but he definitely knew a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. But he has talked a lot about ECW. He's talked about Daphne a lot. I know about the Dr. Stevie gimmick, and so it's a little plug for his show. It's actually really interesting. Like if you find the Stevie Richards show, he and actually, believe it or not, him, an American, and a British guy do the show. So I'm not even lying.
I've come across it a couple of times. Yeah, I think I know what about.
It's just that perfect mix of peanut butter and chocolate, baby. You know.
Yeah, peanut butter and scones.
That too.
Yeah. So So where am I? So yeah. So we have Bound for Glory now, and it's Mick Foley versus Abyss, and they have what we call a monsters brawl match, and basically it's a hardcore match. Anything goes. You have barbed wire in it, I guess, which makes it a bit more unique. And Daphne was part of Foley's crew, so she's siding with Foley, and she has a spot with Abyss where Abyss kind of grabs her as she's like climbing the turnbuckle, and then chucks her off the turnbuckle and was supposed to throw into a table. And landing into tables is just a common thing within wrestling.
Well, and there's barbed wire on it too. I mean, it was
there's barbed wire on it, but I've always thought the barbed wire at times was not as dangerous as it looked, if you know what I mean.
Have you ever been caught by barbed wire?
I have, but the barbed wire they have, I always felt that it was gimmicky.
Oh yeah, it probably is. I mean, you're probably right about that. It probably is very gimmicky. But although Mick Foley does not, most of the time, at least early on, he didn't use gimmicky barbed wire. He used real barbed wire.
Yeah. So she was supposed to land on this table, and that was that. But unfortunately, her landing wasn't that great, and she ended up having a concussion. And she also broke her arm. And unfortunately, it's these moments you have in the industry, like that what was the name of that girl? You watched Monday Night Raw, by the way.
Zoe Stark and her leg.
Yeah, for me, that's the end of her career.
Pretty much.
You know,
That was my first thought. Is like she just came back. Like I mean, I know
yeah.
she's been on. I know she's been on social media a lot, but like I'm pretty sure this is her first match in a while. I've been watching Raw since it went to Netflix because I could actually get it, and I don't believe I've seen Zoe Stark more than once since January.
She's quite injury prone, and unfortunately for her, she's not a household name within the industry as well, which is why I needed you to remind me who what her name was, because even after what happened to her, I still couldn't remember her name.
Just remember
But
Tony Stark.
yeah, fair enough. And I just thought to myself, wow, like if what I heard, I mean, I heard her scream the way she did and everything. And
Oh
it's a
yeah.
no DQ match and all of that, but yeah, they didn't give a fuck. They stopped it.
Well, I
You
mean,
know,
I hate to say it this way, but they were fortunate it was a triple threat match, so at least Rhea and Kyrie could like finish the match. But yeah,
yeah,
but anyway, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, yeah,
But
those
yeah,
kind of botches, like even the slightest botch can lead to like a big, massive, injury or you know.
I don't think there was a bot. I just think the fact that she's injury prone and yeah, it led to
Actually, I was just watching the Stevie Richards show because they were breaking it down. No, what happened was is Kyrie did not make the distance from the ropes to where she was supposed to be for when Zoe Stark was going to drop kick her. So she went to put her one leg down, the one that she broke or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So she went to put that one leg down to kind of catch herself because she wasn't going to make the drop kick. And that's what happened is that it just went down. Yeah. So
Okay. Let's move on from that because these sort of things they make me fucking squeamish.
mm.
But
Not me. I'm a therapist. That's the kind of stuff I'm like, ooh, I wonder what they broke in there. Anyway.
yeah, but yeah, it was a sort of injury that yeah, it can basically be the beginning of your end of your career, and
And
like
I
I said,
mean, with her with
broke
her
her
having
arm.
bipolar, like with her having bipolar, I mean, you're essentially injuring a muscle that is already like, injury prone, not injury prone, but like already compromised if with
Well,
concussions.
within months, she was back in the ring, and
How many times do we hear
and
that in these stories? When they're back in the ring way before they should.
exactly, especially when if you've broken a bone, like you need at least you probably need close to a year, like healing then rehab. Like you need a long time. But regardless, she's back in the ring because she doesn't want to lose her spot. I don't think people lose their spot. I think the moment when you come back, you can get a massive like reception from fans, and then you become a spot. That's how I look at it personally.
I mean, it
You
just
know,
depends on what your status was when you left, and how much people miss you. You know what I mean? Like, I think people know, like, if you're a good worker in the ring, like you can be a good talker and nobody will miss you. You can be, but if you do really good work in the ring, people will just mark out no matter who you are when you come back.
well, I mentioned Jeff Hardy earlier. I mentioned him again because he was out of the industry. He comes back, and even then when he does come back, he wasn't coming back. He was just, I think his brother was still working for the WWE, and he just paid him a visit. And they thought, okay, you know what, you're back, you're here. We would like to hire you again. And then not only that, he ended up being one of the, he ended up being WWE champion within a short period of time of returning, because the euphoria of him coming back was just too much. Like he was really popular.
Yep.
But that's how I look at it sometimes when people come back. But anyway, she came back, but she didn't want to lose her spot, and she had a match with a very large lady called Rosita Lotta Love, Rosie Lotta Love. Sorry, yeah, you can see she had a lot of love.
The proto Nia Jax.
Yeah, and what is it with these larger wrestlers? Like, she did a move that should be banned, from
I
being done.
I hate, like, okay, it's the bonsai drop. I hate I hate when Nia Jax does it because it doesn't look good. Like, not that she can't do it, but like it doesn't look good. Like you can clearly tell she lands on her feet first. And do I think that she shouldn't land on her feet first? No, because if you land like full weight on someone's sternum, you could crush their chest. So I agree with you. I think it should be banned, and I think it is a stupid move because it looks awful every single time.
Like when you see Yokozuna do his finishing move, yeah, he's obviously using the ropes for leverage. He's not putting his full weight, and when he comes crashing down, he's not coming crashing down with his full weight. He's making sure that he lands on his feet, and then he just places his ass on their chest, and
But
then
that's what
maybe
I.
after,
But that's what I'm. It makes it look
yeah,
horrible. Go watch the bonsai drop. Watch Nia Jack. I don't remember what she calls it, but like watch those. Like watch a compilation of those, and like they look horrible. They look like they're fake, and it's like I hate it. Like
well, but then you have the opposite. Then you remember Mabel, what he did to Diesel.
hmm
Like, and for me, a lesser man would have been broken in half if Mabel. Well, you saw Diesel's face, like Jesus Christ, like this guy just slammed his entire fucking weight, and uh, he ain't a small guy, Mabel. He's like 500 pounds quite easily.
But that's
You
what
know what I
I'm
mean?
saying is like it's just it looks bad and it's not worth the risk. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
at least with a splash, you come down like evenly with like parallel with or perpendicular with their body, and you can at least put your arms and knees down. You know what I mean? But it doesn't look bad. The bonsai drop just it is wide open and it just looks bad when people don't land with it right. And it just again, I hate the move. I think it's the
yeah.
worst.
I think the only person who done it really well was Earthquake.
Yeah,
Like
I think Earthquake
Earthquake,
did a pretty good one.
yeah, Earthquake
But
did.
I
Yeah,
think he also landed on a lot of people pretty hard. Like
I always felt he landed very high, heavy on his feet. And more than anything, he put most of the weight on it. From what when if you watch it, is Earthquake Splash. But anyway, so where am I? So she had that sit down splash. That what did you call? I called it a sit down bomb. What did you call it? A
bonsai drop.
bonsai drop. Yeah.
That's what Yokozuna called it was a bonsai drop.
Anyway, it caused her more injuries, and she was back on the shelf. So Daphne then had legal issues with TNA because she believed that that despite being an independent contractor, and it's funny, but even the TNA went down with the independent contractor route. If you get injured in the ring, TNA should take care of your medical expenses, and I 100% agree with that. Personally, um, but I mean, especially if you're going to be in this industry, if you're going to be in the wrestling industry, your company should fucking take care of you. I mean, so especially in a country like America, where you don't have public health care, your company should definitely take care of you. So what TNA did as a compromise was that they let her have 100% royalties on all of her Daphne merch that was sold. Congratulations, Daph. You can make buck on your merch, which meant shit fuck all to her, because I'm sure her merch wasn't selling that
You know
much,
what
and it was just
you,
a stupid compromise.
you know
Yeah,
what that reminded me of? I can't remember if it was Ben Affleck's Daredevil or if it was Charlie Cox's Daredevil, but like one of those Daredevils, it was like I remember Foggy being like oh yeah, so and so just came by to pay their bill in fish. Like like
yeah,
I want to say it was Netflix that one of their customers was paying their legal fees in fish because they didn't have money, but they had fish.
I think that might have been the Netflix one as well.
I was like, oh my god, like this can't be real life. I can't believe like it's insanity that a company would actually try to pull that shit off.
Yep. So so where am I? What? So because of the issues Daphne did have initially, and what came down the line, now all wrestling basically has concussion protocols, which is very good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but Daphne being on the shelf again went into deep depression, and her concussions and her bipolar effect had basically had more effect on her mental health. By 2011, Daphne had to make a choice. Her body couldn't take it anymore, but she still wanted to be involved in wrestling. She attended fan events and put a spotlight on women wrestlers who suffer from bipolar disorder. She even started refereeing matches, but that also had a toll on her body. being around the business but not being able to wrestle was causing her too much pain mentally. And then Shannon started to self-medicate. And I can tell you, somebody who has done self-medicating, it's good for a while, but it's not good for the long run, especially if you think that self-medicating basically means taking, you're not doing the right medication, you're self-medicating, which basically means you're doing drugs and stuff like that. And she was mainly drinking in her terms of self-medicating, and it had an effect on her, and she ended up having 2 DUI offenses. She was ordered to go to rehab, and it was that night before rehab that she started to contemplate suicide. And you can understand that. Now, I really wish Jose was here, but I wanted to talk about suicide very briefly because I don't know about yourself, Cheeto, and I don't want to speak for everybody at the same time, but I do feel that at some point we all have hit such rock bottom, or we feel so rock bottom, that we probably want to end it because it'll probably be a lot easier than continuing living. I'm not sure how you have felt at times.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that is always, whether it be a fleeting thought or an intrusive thought, that is always something that everybody goes through. Usually, I mean, you have to be really good to not even have the fleeting thoughts of, it'd be so much easier if I was just not here. And that, as I said, that's kind of why, everybody has that, but that doesn't mean that everybody deals with it the same way, and that doesn't mean that everybody can handle it the same way. Obviously, with in Daphne's case.
Yeah, I agree. Now she really started to have an issue with her image, and she was starting to gain weight, and she was getting depressed about that. It becomes a vicious circle. Then COVID hit, and then she was even more isolated because she kind of felt alone. Now, as an introvert, I was fucking loving it. But
I was a healthcare professional. I didn't even get to sit at home. I still had to go to work.
well, I was, don't get me wrong, I was also a essential worker because I was taking essential workers to work. So I was working as well during COVID, but at the same time, though, being home alone. Oh yeah, I fucking loved it. So September the 1st, 2021, Shannon goes live on Instagram, and she's doing a live suicide note.
No,
She
I
also
haven't
has a
seen the
cut.
video. Was it just that she was talking and like people figured out that she was basically doing a suicide note, or was it
Yeah,
like, this is my
that
suicide note? I did not catch on with,
she,
you
she
know.
she went live on Instagram. She was doing like a live stream
No, I know,
on
but like, did
Instagram.
she say this is my suicide note, or was it more like people
Not
kind of
not in
inferred
those words, but I think that people
who knew her?
kind of, yeah, they knew what the hell was going on. Like they could see between the lines and all of that. Um, it, I think she was also being very, and I think there was no even in between the lines. I think she was at times, Cheetah, she was being kind of obvious that this is it, if you know what I mean. So she also had a gun from her roommate, which is how she ended it. But prior to her ending it, all her friends and family saw her doing this live, and they all tried to get hold of her. They would be calling her phone, and she wasn't answering, and so many voicemails.
Well, and
Excuse me.
she was also, I mean, they were also on the live chat telling her, pick up your phone, but you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
but I mean, pretty much she had already decided, from what it seems like, she had already decided what was going to happen.
Um, her family would knock on the door, and she wasn't opening. They ended up calling the fire department, and they broke down the door to get to Shannon. And the fireman saw her deceased and had to tell her parents and son, sorry, tell the parents and her brother the terrible news. And I think this was where I think Shannon's mum is still alive. She just didn't want to do the dark side. Only her dad and her brother did. But from what was told, that her parents, they're like their legs buckled, under the news, and it was her son and another fireman who tried to keep them up, and I I always say that you never bury your children, you never outlive your children, they outlive you. They're the ones who bury you. My parents, and my parents are gone now, but at least they didn't have to see me and my brother go before them. We had the honor and the duty of putting them in the earth. And unfortunately for Shannon's parents, they didn't. They had to bury their daughter, which must be horrible. All her peers, such as Foley, wished she reached out to them before she did what she did. Some of them were actually angry. One of her friends was kind of angry at Shannon for leaving the way that she did. Shannon being an aunt to one of her kids, and if she thought she was her friend, why did she go like that? And others wish they knew what she was going to do before she did the deed, so they would have stopped her. She has so many friends, so many family members who wanted the best for her. And
I mean, so many people that were just willing to fight for her when she wasn't willing to fight for herself. That's one of the big things, is that when you're in that state of mind and you're ready to give up, you have people that are willing to fight for you, and even though you don't have the will to fight, you don't have the will to fight. Those people are willing to take that burden upon themselves to fight for you and keep you trudging along. I'm not trying to be comical, but it's almost like, with Frodo and Sam, in Lord of the Rings, when the weight of the ring was too much for Frodo, Sam basically deadlifted after being starving for days, deadlifted.
He's exhausted, he's dehydrated.
Mm-hmm. And he deadlifted Frodo and said, "You know what? I can't carry the ring, but I can carry you." And he's
carrying up a mountain.
Yeah. And that,
he's
but as I said, that's what those people need. And I mean, her family tried to do that, like that. I don't think for one second that it was any fault of her family or anything like that. Like, she had the opportunity and the time, and they did not have enough time to get to her. And it's unfortunate.
Life was unlucky for her at times, regarding her dreams.
Mm-hmm.
and how she wasn't able to maintain those dreams. Shannon's family, you see them reminiscing over photos of her, bringing up all of Daphne's positives, and we also saw Daphne doing something which was really cool. Mick Foley brings up the story about how this girl called Vicky Lyons was hit by a car, in a hit and run, and it affected her. It was life changing, that hit. You could see it in the way she talked outside of her face and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And as Mick Foley was doing some more research on this person, she found out that this person, Vicky Lyons, had a wrestling match with somebody called Daphne, and no, that can't be for real. What the hell's all that about? Vicky always wanted to be a wrestler, and Daphne gave her the opportunity by having a match with her in some indie promotion. It was only a handful of people watching, but it didn't matter. And not only did Daphne wrestle Vicky, she also put Vicky over as well. A fantastic gesture. And it kind of really, really genuinely showed you who Shannon Vicky is, as a person, to do what they did. Nobody within the industry, despite of her obviously suffering from bipolarism, and I'm sure she turned people the wrong way at times, but not one person in this show spoke bad about her. All of her friends in the women's division loved her. All of the men who worked with her, like the guy Crowbar, loved her. David Flair, obviously, rest in peace, David Flair. I'm sure he enjoyed working with her. But Crowbar even mentioned that even though him and David and Daphne were a trio, it would be her that they would remember. Out of that trio.
Yeah, and I mean, as even Mick Foley said, he said, he's been around a long time, and he said he'd never heard anyone say a bad thing about Shannon or Daphne. Well, same person, obviously, but like so. I see that's the thing is that it did seem very like Robin Williams, and this is one of the greatest things that I love about Robin Williams is that he always said check on your happy friends. They're the ones who are struggling the most. The ones that are trying to make you think that they are like hunky dory and everything's fine. And that's what they said. They said, I mean, she obviously had issues and a lot of people saw it, but yeah, I didn't think David Flair was dead either. But
sorry, it's the other Flair. I apologize.
Yeah, but it's all right. I was gonna let it go. It's fine.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. What's one Flair to the other? Who cares?
Thank you for correcting me, by the way, Beavis.
Yeah. But yeah, like sometimes the people that put up the strongest front of being like happy and like that's what they say about social media. Like you see people on social media that post that like everything's so hunky dory. They're sometimes the ones that are struggling the most. They put that front up because they don't want to be a burden on somebody else. Daphne seemed like she did not want to be a burden on anyone else. Like even though everybody knew she had problems, she tried not to be a burden on other people. Even taking her to the hospital. You even said earlier in the episode, they were taking her to the hospital and like she's trying to get out of the car because she's like, she didn't want to be a burden to people. And I know it's not explicitly said in the episode, but I'm like, that tracks. These people don't want to, be the reason other people are, suffering. Anyway, sorry.
No, I agree. And like I said, what she did for Vicky Lyons as well.
Mm-hmm.
People sometimes with the most amount of shit are the ones who still go out of their way to help somebody else. So Scream Queen Daphne, me to summarize, Scream Queen Daphne's story is one of the most tragic in my personal opinion of a Dark Side of the Ring episode history.
That and Chris Canyon, those two are pretty tragic. You know what I mean?
Yeah. A woman who gave so much to the industry without the industry giving much back to her. She put a spotlight on issues that have saved lives for this generation of wrestlers. Her friends and family don't have a bad word to say about her.
She also donated her brain to CTE research.
Yep. Despite her having bipolar, and she did obviously donate her brain and her parts for research, which just shows you what sort of person she is. She was always willing to help other people.
And so from what I understand, like because she didn't want to risk damaging her brain, obviously, for the research, she shot herself in the chest. Like because she could have lived from that. She could have.
I never thought of that. You're absolutely right there, Cheeto. That's just well said.
Like she did not want to risk harming her brain because she was so very dead set on it going to CTE research that she shot herself in the chest. And again, that just goes to show you that like she's just, she could have lived. Like, and maybe she didn't realize that at the time, but she could have done that and lived and been even more miserable. You know what I mean? Like, but she was willing to put that on the line because she wanted to make sure her brain was intact. She could have even suffered. She obviously suffered probably more in her death.
But she was she was straight A student. They mentioned that earlier as well. She was a very athletic girl. She was a talented performer and actress. I mean, she really had the world at her feet, and she wanted to be involved in wrestling of all things. It's crazy. But
Yeah.
she went out. It's weird in a way. Like some people say, like suicide is the coward's way out. You know, taking your own life is not fucking easy. You know, for people who've contemplated it, like myself, but never had the balls to fucking do it because it's hard. It's hard to end it, to go into whatever comes next after your heart stops beating. You know, nobody knows, but she was willing to take that plunge and do it um prematurely because she didn't live till she was old. You know, she was still reasonably young, and she took that jump. You know, suicide is by no means an easy way out, not at all. Rest in peace, Daphne. You will be missed. Let's quickly mark it and get the fuck out of here. Cheetah, what do you want to give it out of 10?
I don't even know if I want to rank it. I mean, I'm going to give it a 10 just because I was very moved by this episode. Whether it was a dark side episode, a regular episode, a docu-side of the ring, it was a very moving episode. It hit me, and as I said, it hit me in a very personal spot with a lot of things that that I struggle with, that I believe in, that I've been through. And so that's why I'm more, it's a 10 because it hit me really hard. I don't even want to break this down as like nitpicking the episode and stuff. I felt like that everybody in this episode was very genuine and very loving, and they were honoring Daphne. There was nothing there. Like if this was just a rip piece on, for it almost would have felt like cash grab. Like I don't feel like it was a cash grab. I felt like there was genuine, like they let everybody speak their mind and respect, and they were very respectful to Daphne. It wasn't just like, hey, let's try to get more clicks. So
I want to be respectful like you are, but I'm going to be very honest with myself and how I felt about this episode. I thought this was a good episode. I thought this was definitely a dark episode. I just wasn't engrossed with it. I mean, I was very interested and stuff like that, but it being tragic gives you a different vibe to some of these more. I can't believe this happened, and I can't believe that happened. No, like it was just a very sad story, and they have their place within Dark Side, but I give it a 7. I thought this was good. I genuinely did, but these Dark Side episodes are for me like the ones that I find they affect me.
they're not entertaining. They're
Yeah,
they're more like a moving symphony.
yeah, I agree.
Where it's more emotional than it is like you said, this and that. Like I didn't know this
Yeah.
before.
Okay, well, as we wrap things up, next week is the episode I've been looking forward to the most, and it happens to be the final episode of the season. It's the Muhammad Hassan episode. I cannot wait for this one. I really hope it does deliver. And because it's basically going to be based around the character of Muhammad Hassan, I'm not looking for some history on like the early years and shit like that. I want it all focused on that period. I hope so. Would you agree, Cheetah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh
Great.
yeah, absolutely. Because I love the fact they said he was an Italian guy from, I don't remember where he was from, but he was like not Jersey, but he was like he's from America, like and he's Italian.
He's not even Arab American. He's Italian American. Yeah.
I know. That's what I'm like.
Yeah.
I didn't know that when they said that in the preview. I'm like, what? I didn't
You
even
didn't know about
that.
I knew about that. That I did know.
Well, I
But
didn't know about Santino Marella either, and I'll let if anyone wants to look that up. I mean, he's not even Italian.
He's Canadian.
Either. Yeah, he's Canadian. Like, so never knew that until Ginger Greek told me that. Anyway, go ahead and wrap it up.
All right, great. Look, join us for that one. That'll be a doozy. A nice way to finish off the season. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe to NerdTube, the greatest social media channel you never heard of. Take care. Bye bye.